I'm gay and I'm married to a woman, and I want to talk today about coming out of the closet, which was a struggle for me for a long time, and hopefully give some words of encouragement to people who are maybe still in the closet or have come out and have their own struggles with coming out. I was somebody who very gradually came out of the closet. There were a few big defining moments of coming out, but there wasn't one moment where it was like I was completely out to the world. There was a lot of steps along the way, and this mostly came from fear of being judged by people. So I would slowly tell friends, that I was this or that, or hint at being gay, or I would say I was bisexual just to give that soft landing. And that was starting around 18 years old is when I really started to tell my very close friends about this. And I had always known I was gay only. I knew inside that I wasn't attracted to women. And as a little kid and as a early teenager, I thought maybe I could will that away. I thought that this was something that was, I don't want to say a phase, but was something that I had the power to change. And at the same time, I kind of knew that really wasn't gonna work, but I was determined to try because I just didn't want to be gay. I didn't want to deal with the social isolation. I didn't want to deal with upsetting my family. I wanted to be a normal, straight boy. And yet somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew that just was really never going to happen, but I was like fighting it. And so for all those years, it just festered inside of me. It was this deep, dark thing brooding, and nobody could know. And it does eat at you. It really it changes your chemistry a little bit, because it feels almost like you're a serial killer or a criminal who's living with these dark secrets, like Dexter Morgan or something. Oh, I can't tell people who I really am, who the beast is inside. And that's really a shame, because it plays with your mind. It makes you feel like you're a freak and that there's something negative to this whole thing, when in fact it's a very beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to be able to just admit who you are and live as you are, no matter what the social consequences may be, as long as they're healthy behaviors and not hurting anybody or anything like that. And so as a kid, before puberty, it's there. And I think the hardest part of it was when other kids would call me gay, and it just felt like they had a looking glass into my soul. I was like, how can you tell I'm gay? I'm 9 years old. I haven't told you any of these secrets of mine, and I'm trying really hard to not appear gay. And yet you just see right through it. And kids would do it all the time. Oh, there's the gay kid. And you're just like, it literally feels like somebody is violating your privacy, because you are doing everything in your power to not appear gay, and they just see right through it. And it's one of those things that you just kind of know you wear being gay. Like, you don't have to have the gay voice. You don't have to be ultra effeminate or walk around with your wrist bent. It just kind of is something that is practical to a person. You can look at a picture of some people and just know they're gay. And so, of course, they saw through me. And I had to deal with that, and that was very aggravating. it probably also stopped me from coming out sooner, because having them see that and having to resist that then created the facade that I was able to maintain, which is, no, I'm not gay. And if I didn't have to defend that, maybe I would have had more peace with it and eventually come out sooner in my life. So they definitely played a part in the dramas of my childhood, and middle school was rough. Early high school was a lot easier. For some reason, people were less likely to call me out in high school, and I was able to keep the facade going pretty easily there. I mean, maybe they saw through it and just didn't say anything. People would make comments, of course, here and there, but it wasn't as bad. And good Lord, somewhere around 18, my senior year, it just started to get to a point where the frustration was too deep. And I think I'd had enough examples around me of gay people living their lives, being happy, being accepted in the communities they were in. I was in a theater, and I would see people in my theater communities that were fine and gay. And I saw, I don't know what it was that allowed me to sort of have the comfort to tell my friend at the time. And I told my best friend at the time, who was a girl a little older than me, that I had known since first grade. I'd known her forever, and we had become really close again in high school. And I just told her about my feelings, and she was like, cool, okay. And once that happened, it was like, wait a minute. People are just going to be like, okay, great. Okay, so then I can tell a couple other people. And I told a couple other people, and then for maybe a year or two afterwards, it was more like, maybe more than a year or two afterwards, throughout the rest of the history before fully coming out, it was more like I would tell the people I was comfortable with. People who made me feel secure in life, and I didn't feel like they were going to judge me for being gay. I had no problem telling them my feelings, and it was pretty easy. Now, that was not my family. I had not told anybody in my family. And when I got around certain people who made me feel insecure about being gay, either people who were homophobic, people who were even other gay people who I felt like if they knew I was gay would try and put a move on me or something, or there was weird energy about them, I would be scared to tell them because I didn't want to have to deal with rejecting people if they were going to try to put that energy on me. And so that the facade went back up, and I was like, no, I'm not gay. And it kind of was easier to deal with, okay, I don't have to like reject a bunch of gay people I don't want to be with. And then, meeting my wife now, she knew, because I obviously was comfortable talking to her. And over the years, as we were dating, she saw how suppressing my gayness was hurting me, and actually hurting not just me, but her and my entire orbit of people, because the real me was being suppressed and unhappy without being able to express myself. And as I say, it manifested into anger, because the resentments of not being able to tell people who I really am made me angry. And I would let that anger out in unhealthy ways, and in situations that were like completely inappropriate. Like they just were not necessary to be that angry, and yet I got that angry. And so she kept saying to me, maybe if you come out to your family, you'll let go of all this ridiculous anger. And I kept saying, no, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter. Them knowing or not knowing is not going to determine how angry I am in life. That's something else I need to deal with. And eventually the anger got to a point where I was so desperate to do anything to let go of it that I think something finally clicked in my brain and said, maybe she's right. Maybe just telling people that I'm gay will let this go. And so we had a bad argument one day, a really bad argument. And we had a lot of them early in our relationship because that anger created so much friction in our relationship. And I just finally, after a night of arguing, got on the phone with my mom the next day and said, look, Mom, I'm gay. And she was like, okay. And that, I think, relieved a twinge of anger, relieved a portion of it, having her knowing and being on my side. I've always been very close with my mom, and it was very good for me to open up in that way. But the anger was still there because the big kahuna was telling my dad. And my dad's side of the family was the Christian conservative. Their church was very anti-gay. There was a lot of conversations growing up about how my family doesn't approve of homosexuality or gay marriage or anything like that. And so I was terrified to tell him. And so the anger lived on for another year. And I still, for some reason, didn't see how telling my mom helped, and maybe telling my dad would also help. And eventually, what happened is my wife and I went to Florida to visit her parents, and I had to come home early to work. And on the plane ride home, I started to not feel very well. And by the time I got to our apartment from the plane ride, I had a temperature and chills, and very clearly knew I had COVID. And this is the first time we had caught COVID. I hadn't had it yet, and this is now 2021, the summer of 2021. So 19 months after like the initial COVID thing, we finally get it. And my wife and her family actually got it in Florida too. And so I was alone in our apartment, having horrific chills and fever, just really bad case of it. The first few nights were really rough. And somewhere in those late night sweats and fever, I had this revelation that said, I need to tell my dad I'm gay, because if I don't, it will be a major regret in my life. And I don't know if it's one of those like moments when you feel like you're on the edge of death, even though I wasn't, obviously. I was just very sick. But, you know, when you're that sick, it does feel like the closest you are going to feel to death until you get a horrible illness. And you get sort of a taste of that feeling, a taste of not being healthy and not being yourself. And it brings up some emotions. And that emotion just hit the surface that day. And so the next morning, I told my dad I'm gay. And he was a little confused, but ultimately said okay and accepted it and moved on. And I was so thankful. And a couple days later, a little bit of anger came out again. And then it just started to disappear. There was maybe like another month of some anger. And it truly, really just started to disappear. And it was immaculate. It was like such a suffocating weight had been taken off of my shoulders. And finally, my wife and I, our relationship could thrive, because instead of shutting down in anger, I could have conversations and communicate and get to an understanding place. And I myself wasn't scared of myself anymore. I wasn't scared of getting angry, because it just didn't happen. Do I still have bits of anger? Yes, but it's the anger that I think anybody lives with, and probably some trauma from the years of all of that going on still lives in me, but it's so minimal compared to what that anger used to be. And that's why I share our story, and we want to share our story so well, is that we want people who are living with the weight of coming out to find some relief. And especially if you're in a situation like ours and your partner doesn't know about your queer feelings, that can really fuck with your head. And I was fortunate to have a partner who knew and was very understanding. And so by sharing our story, we hope to encourage the people who are gay to share with their partners, but also to encourage and have other partners understand if their person comes out to them. And, it takes both sides to make it work. And it's also a tricky thing for a lot of partners if the gay partner has been living a lie to them. And that can be really tricky, because for some people that's a major deal breaker, because they feel like, how can I trust you? You've been living this facade to me for however long we've been together, and now you come out, and what else are you hiding? How can I trust anything you do or say if this has been our reality? So that makes total sense, and that's a whole other discussion and boundary and things that you'll probably and should definitely go see a counselor to help work yourself out of, if that's the case. And that might also be inhibiting the gay partner from coming out, is the fear of the backlash of the years of the lies. So a lot of pressure there, and no pressure to do it on any schedule that isn't your own. You should always do this on your own schedule when you are ready. Do not ever let anybody push you to do it before you're comfortable. You can have people tell you maybe it would be helpful and say this would be a good idea, but don't make them have you tell people before you're ready, because that can lead to disaster. As I talk about with my friend who commits suicide after his parents didn't accept him, he was pressured to tell his parents by his sister before he was ready to come out. And that, I think, is one of the big issues with his story, is that he wasn't able to tell them on his own time, and it caused so many problems. And I think about that, and I would love to reach out to his family and just talk to them and let them know my feelings, and it's very hard. There's some resentment towards his family for not accepting him that I have, because I feel like they're the cause of his death. But also there's a lot of sadness for them because I know they live with that. And there's nothing more painful, I'm sure, than living with the reality that their lack of acceptance led to the death of their son. And that's the danger of this thing, of not accepting people as who they are. It's not just, a little argument. It's life and death for some people. It's the same thing with the trans argument. It's the same thing with any argument where you're not accepting people who come out to you as they are. You can have your feelings about it. You can disagree with the lifestyle or the politics of something, but to not accept somebody who you love unconditionally because they're gay or they're trans or they are whatever, or they're another religion, or they believe something different than you politically, is so wrong. It's so wrong. And we see that a lot in our world, especially now. I see that both sides politically. People just shut out their family because they don't want to deal with their opposing political beliefs. And I'm like, get over it. You can't be firm in your beliefs and have somebody else have their own beliefs and share it with you and not get in a tizzy. Or you can't have difference of religion. You can't have a gay person in your family or a trans person. And it's so tragic. And we've had a lot of friends who are trans, who have come out to us as trans. And it just doesn't change who they are. It's that when we're around our trans friends who've, we knew pre-transition, they are still the same soul. It's still the same person in a body that they feel more comfortable in. And it's interesting because a lot of them, it does feel like they come into their own in a lot of ways. It's that same sort of restrictive thing when you can't come out, that when they let go and they transition and they live how they want to live, they just have a freeness about them. They have a fullness that maybe was lacking a little bit before, but underneath it, the same thing.